So, good afternoon, good morning everyone. It's Steve Bates at the BIA and welcome to this Brexit briefing webinar. I hope in the next 20 minutes or so I can give you an update on what things are moving on Brexit and give you a perspective from the life science industry that can bring you up to speed with where things have got to over the last couple of months. And if you have any questions, I hope to have some time for questions at the end. As with all the best box sets, I always think there's best to start with previously on, and Brexit is obviously a process that the BIA has been working on really since the beginning of last year, since February 2016. And if you follow this snake timeline down the left column, up the middle column, and back down the right-hand column, you can see that some of the things that we've been doing up to now. Many of you will remember, obviously, the referendum in June. The fact that we put together a UK-EU Life Science Steering Group in July, that we engaged with many of you as members in the transition programme across July and August as the Prime Minister, we got the new Prime Minister, Theresa May. We provided the reports to the steering committee in September and met with ministers in November on the priorities for the sector. That has then led it through the autumn, whilst we've seen the developments of President Trump and the Supreme Court cases, to further meetings of the Industrial Strategy Life Science Group. And then just into this year, you've seen the Prime Minister's speech on the government's approach to Brexit. And in the last week or so, we've had the Brexit bill go through the House of Commons in recent weeks. So that's where we've got to, I suppose. And then where are we going from here? I'm imagining that it's all going to be absolutely smooth sailing and be pretty straightforward. We'll start with the Brexit bill getting royal assent next month. We expect Article 50 to be triggered early in March. There may well then be a discussion between the EU and the UK, which we expect that to happen between April of this year and October 2018, with a parliamentary process around the Queen's Speech and the Great Repeal Bill, which will incorporate EU law that's needed into UK law going forward. Then the deal goes back to member states if it's done in late 2018. There'll be a vote on it in the European Parliament. There'll be a vote on it in the UK Parliament, we now know, and then the UK will be leaving the EU in March 2019. I'm sure it won't be as simple as that, is what I would say at this stage. I think that there'll be lots of along the way, but that's sort of a bare bones expectation of what the process could look like that we expect to follow going forward. So how else could things look going forward? I think that this is probably more the process that we'll see in the coming months, and some of the things that we have factored in. Article 50 being triggered, I would expect to see early in March, perhaps as early as the 9th. That's one of the dates that's mooted. This would enable there to be a discussion on a substantive discussion at the European Council the following days following that. But I think the other thing that we've got to look at is that there are some significant elections in Europe this year, in Holland, in France, and in Germany. And it may well be that the political context in which this discussion is happening will look different at the end of 2017 to where it is now in February 2017. I don't think we expect it to be where we are now at this stage last year. So I expect some bumps along the way. And of course, this may not happen in the format that we're expecting. So a little bit on some context of Brexit that I think are important to factor in for the next period of time. I've touched on one already, which is European politics. These, I think, will set the tone for the negotiations, depending on which way the publics in Netherlands, in France, and in Germany choose to elect their political leaderships. I think we'll have an important context on the discussion, and we just need to be mindful of that going forward. Not something the BIA will be seeking to influence or have any impact on, but important context nonetheless. The second is there are a number of court cases that are likely to have an impact on the process of Brexit, and the famous one, I think, is what's known as the Article 50, the Gina Miller case, which was the case that went to the Supreme Court of the UK, which looked at whether Parliament should have a vote about triggering Article 50. Obviously, the government lost that case, but then have brought in a legislation to enable the position to happen. They also won another case around triggering soft Brexit. And there are a couple of other new cases which may well have an impact on elements of this going forward. One's for the Dublin case and the expats case. If these start to get into prominence, I think we will see they are an important context for us to bear in mind, because they could have an impact on the shape or nature or time frame for Brexit. So we're just keeping them in mind, and as they go through the process, we'll keep a weather eye on them. The third context is what's going to happen in the UK Parliament with regard to Brexit. We've obviously seen the Brexit bill, formerly known as the European Union brackets Notice of Withdrawal close brackets Bill 2016-2017 being presented. It's through the Commons. It goes to the House of Lords next. It wasn't amended by the House of Commons, but it will be interesting to see whether the House of Lords choose to make some changes to it, and I don't know what that will look like, but they all have to be agreed before royal assent, and obviously the government can't trigger Article 50 until it's done. So that's an active and live discussion, as we know, going forward. There's then likely to be this Great Repeal Bill, as I've mentioned, probably in the middle of part of this year. Depending on what's in it, and the discussion of it is likely to be significant and will set the legal framework for important parts of our sector post-Brexit. What's going to be in it, what that's going to look like, and how that's going to operate, we still don't know, but I think that will be an important thing to watch. And then there are lots and lots of parliamentary inquiries by select committees and the like of the UK Parliament looking at aspects of Brexit, which I know companies, members and others are being asked to provide sometimes evidence or submissions to, and there's lots of those going on, and there may well be opportunities to provide a detailed level of knowledge and expertise through some of those processes. They're too numerous for me to go through here, but there's lots of them, and we're engaged in several of them. The fourth context is devolved administrations within the UK. The United Kingdom is not just England. Obviously, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland have a say. We have elections in the Northern Ireland Assembly at the moment upcoming. Obviously, in Scotland, the Scottish government is nationalist in its makeup, led by Nicola Sturgeon, and obviously Scotland voted to remain in the EU, and Brexit is a key topic of discussion both between Edinburgh and London, and between the SNP and the Conservative government, the Scottish National Party and the Conservative government. So I think this again is another important context to look at, and may lead to some ongoing discussion. Who knows where it will go, but it's an important context for the coming year. So those are my contexts for the discussion for Brexit. We do now know, as a result of the fact that the government published its white paper last month, that what the UK government is prioritising in terms of its focus for the Brexit negotiations. And if I may, I've just highlighted a few of the key bullet points here. I think you can see ending the jurisdiction of the Court of Justice of the European Union in the UK is central to the approach of the government. Having a wide-ranging, bold and ambitious free trade agreement with a beneficial new customs agreement with the EU, so operating outside of the single market with a new trading deal and operating outside of the customs union are key important points of what the UK government has said it wants. And I think interestingly, point 10 here is that the government has put ensuring the UK remains the best place for science and innovation. We will remain at the vanguard of science and innovation and will seek continued close collaboration with our European partners. It's interesting to see this so front and central as part of the government's continued desire in this space. I think it's very welcome, and I think if you look at this, it suggests that, to me, some of the points that we've been making about the importance and persistence of continuing collaboration across borders, both in universities and with business arrangements, are very important and have been taken heed of. So I'm pleased to see that. What's our take on the government's latest position? If you think about it, really it's articulated both in the white paper and in the Prime Minister's speech. glad to see that the importance of science and innovation is in the guiding principles, as I just outlined on the previous slide. I think I was also keen to see, glad to see that there was an understanding of the need to continue to collaborate on science, research and technology issues, and perhaps giving a charitable interpretation to some phrases from the Prime Minister's speech. She talked of what it made sense that where it made sense, it made no sense to start again from scratch, where there have been a long and detailed engagement with the European Union, and she thought that might anticipate some specific European programs which the UK can continue to participate. And my reading of that is that medicines regulation does fit those criteria which the Prime Minister outlined. So perhaps there's an openness to discuss how the future of medicines regulation could fit within the context that the Prime Minister laid out. So that's my interpretation on where she's at. If I can just take you back to remind you how we established the BIA's position in partnership with the ABPI and through others. That many of you who have been involved in BIA work in this space over the last year will recognise and remember this slide. This comes from the work that we all did together last summer to put together the Managing and Growing the UK's Life Science Sector in the context of leading the EU, the document we presented last September, and thank you to those of you who participated in pulling this together. This still remains the core document for us in terms of our positioning and what we are advocating for, because this is really from the membership what we need to do. And what we're trying to achieve at this time remains what we said we were trying to achieve last year. We want to create a world-leading life science environment for the UK outside of the EU. We want to make sure that we identify optimal positions against potential exit scenarios, that we have to be agile and we have to be flexible to overcome barriers and mitigate risks. We need to identify opportunities for the UK landscape to make it as strong as possible, and we need to provide options to the UK on how they can negotiate with the EU and other bodies going forward through a process and a framework of continued dialogue. So this remains the way in which we're approaching this challenge. You'll remember that basically our work boiled down into 4 areas, which I could summarise as regulation, trade and tax, access to finance and people. And there is ongoing activity against all of these streams with continued BIA and member engagement against the various headings. Apologies for all of the alphabet soup here, but there's ongoing collaborative work with the regulator, the MHRA, the Department of Leaving the EU and the Office of Life Science on how we handle medicines regulation. This is something that's specific to our sector, and it's something that we're working closely on. There is a menu of options. This is being we're having several meetings on this and continue to discuss it. Do we have a considered way forward yet? No, there isn't, but we continue to advocate from our position, which is that which was of last September. Harmonisation with the EMA is the preferred option you asked us to lobby for. Obviously, that's a more difficult context now, given what the Prime Minister has said in terms of the speech and the bill. So we're continuing to look at that one. Trade and tax, obviously, if we're going to be outside the customs union and outside the single market, we've some work to do on what will be a new trading environment for us. Here we're working with the Department for International Trade, the Life Science Organisation, Revenue and Customs, the Treasury, the Department for Brexit in the EU, and Office on Life Science, and we're looking at really the sort of practical nuts and bolts of movements of goods and services, what might happen if there's new duties or delays, and we're looking at also whether investment support will be needed to mitigate some of the new context here. That's also being discussed in the context of the industrial strategy. Access to finance, the BIA led with the Office of Life Science a discussion around the likely implications on Brexit for European Investment Bank and European Investment Fund issues. These are institutions that cornerstone venture capital in the UK, and the UK is a lead shareholder in this institution with other countries. how that's going to operate going forward and what this will mean for the sector, and the funding environment is very important. We've got ongoing discussion in that area. And then I suppose the issue that most members talk to me about is really the importance to or the impact of Brexit on people, particularly where you've got staff that that are EU nationals and live and work in the UK. We are continuing to press the government for further engagement on this. This is not something that's limited only to our sector, but I think is the thorniest of issues. The government continue to say that they want to resolve this as early as possible, but there's nothing formal coming from government at the moment about the continuing rights of EU nationals in the UK. We continue to make the case that this is a pressing issue for companies, for our membership and individuals within those companies. Unfortunately, I can't say that we're getting the clarity that we hope, but we continue to press on that point. The other thing from our perspective is, obviously, we've had a new government since last summer, but there has been a minor reshuffle at the beginning of this year. And if you look at the lowest of the blue boxes here, from left to right, you'll see Lord O'Shaughnessy is in the Department of Health. He is the new minister with responsibility for life sciences, and the department joined a few weeks ago. Lord Pryor, who previously was in that role in the Department of Health, has moved across to the Department for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy, so knows the sector, has learnt us well in the last few months, and is still heavily engaged, but now from a slightly different seat. And then we often also spend time with David Jones, who works with David Davis in the Department affecting the EU, Greg Hands and Jane Ellison on most of the issues that are important to us, but we have good engagement all the way through to the number 10 policy team, and I was lucky enough to have some time with the Prime Minister last autumn as well on this area. The other thing that I think is important as a context for Brexit is the UK government's development of an industrial strategy. This is a new document that came out as a green paper last month, the aim to improve living standards and economic growth. They are looking to do sector deals for businesses, addressing sectors or getting sectors to respond to the themes that are laid out here. And I think there's some opportunity here for us to get some of the things that might be able to move businesses forward. There's a good piece on Twitter which explains what is a very long document as 10 pillars or 10 buckets of areas that they're looking at. And I think you can see from here, again, the commitment to investing in science, research and innovation, the importance they attach to supporting businesses to start and grow, the importance of cultivating world-leading sectors, all chime with the types of things the BIA has been advocating in our vision work, and we are both responding to this and engaging with it, and I think that this may well lead to some useful and supportive policies. The government is committed to creating a life science sector deal as part of this, so we're glad to see that we've got locus there, that there is a commitment to engage on this, and I'm on the life science group chaired by Sir John Bell as the government's life science champion, building a response to the opportunities in the industrial strategy. So I think we can take some heart that there'll be some good things that we can policies we can work with there. So how are we doing? I think we're getting heard. And I think that you can see that although probably the context of Brexit isn't going the direction that we would most have liked it to have gone, key players are appraised of our issues and repeatedly stress the importance of our sector to the economy and to their thinking in terms of Brexit. I suppose my analysis for you is that, as people always used to say Brexit means Brexit. Well, I think at the moment what we're seeing in the last couple of months is that the government is prioritising some of the concerns that the public had expressed last year, particularly around the impact of immigration, over some of the voices that would make the case for putting economic policy at the centre of a Brexit plan. I think it's clear that the government is countenancing a very hard Brexit, a potential exit from the EU with no deal on some of the key things as a possibility. From our work last year and from continued engagement with the membership, I think this is at the least desired end of the spectrum from BIA member companies' perspective, but we're pragmatic and we will work with whichever format we've got. And I think there is opportunity now and the government is very keen to be supportive of science and innovation and businesses in our space. We have open engagement routes with the government and with civil servants and with others on this important topic. But I think we're effective when we are pragmatic and flexible in our approach. And if you're a fan of a box set, I think if this was Game of Thrones, we wouldn't even have got through the first couple of episodes, and we've a long way to go on this. So if I can, in summary, before I take any questions, and I hope you're tapping away in the chat box if you have any questions, what we'll do from the BIA's perspective is we'll continue to monitor and explain what is undoubtedly a complex political process through a life science prism, and I hope you found that useful. We're doing these monthly now in terms of webinars. Weekly I put out my newscast, and we do a quarterly update in terms of policy pulled together as to what's going on. So hopefully we're keeping you informed in bite-sized pieces of what is a complex process, and we're continuing to represent on your behalf on the key issues to the key ministers and civil service groups. If you have the capacity to engage and you want to engage, obviously our expert sector committees are helping us carry the burden of that. There's plenty of opportunity for people to engage if they wish, and please continue to do so. We rely on your expertise to enable us to advocate. Industrial strategy is worth a watch, and I think the potential for a life science sector deal is important. There will be chances to input to that. The BIA is seeking views of members at the moment on this, and there could be some policies that emerge that will be helpful. And I think on Innovate UK, they are looking at the moment to a thing called the Industrial Strategy Challenge Fund, which is likely to be the areas that Innovate UK are going to support and invest in the coming period, which means that they may well give support for companies working in that space. I would say if you're interested in that type of support for your business, engaging now to influence that is important. Right. Is it too early to make any comment on the EMA location? Probably is the answer to that. And I think what we've said and made my comment on the EMA is we always thought when we were making the case during the campaign for the UK to remain in the EU that we thought it would be unlikely if the UK was to leave the EU that an institution of the European Union will remain outside of the borders of the EU, and that continues to be my likely expectation of this. I think it's hard to imagine a scenario in which the politics of Europe would enable the European Medicines Agency to remain HQ'd in London once the UK is outside the EU. However, pragmatically, what we are very keen to ensure, and what we are saying to everybody is, it's in no one's interest for the capacity of the European Medicines Agency to be lost. It is an agency made up of people, and rebuilding a functioning agency in a different city is not something that's easy or straightforward to do. If there are pragmatic and sensible ways forward that can enable the regulator to continue to operate for patient safety and to do its job, we think that that's the most important thing. But I think it's unlikely that in the long term the European Medicines Agency will be located in London. Are there any other questions? I'm conscious I'm keeping you in UK time late on a Friday afternoon, but perhaps it's a pleasant lunchtime in Boston or other times. If there's not any further questions, I hope you found this of use. We will be doing this again next month. I'm sorry that we've got to the end of our time and there's no straightforward answers to all of these questions, but I hope you feel better informed and that this has been useful for you. If you're not a BIA member, the only reason we're able to do this is a result of members' continued support of us as an organisation, as a members' organisation, and we would be delighted to tell you more about other benefits of membership if you are not already a member. Contact Jane Wall on the email here. If you'd like to see us in person, here's a selection of events where we will not be down the end of a computer line. We can have breakfast with us in Manchester in March. We've got our CEO Investor Forum in Oxford in May. A great conference joint with the MHRA, which I think will be very topical for audiences interested in Brexit in June. Bioscience Forum in October, and we'll be down in Wales for bioprocessing at the end of November. Thank you very much, and registration is open for our next one of these on Friday the 10th of March. If this is useful for you, I hope that you can catch up with us at one of the next ones and tell your friends if you found it useful. With that, I'm going to say thank you very much, and I hope you found it useful. We can speak again soon. Thank you.